Good morning, everybody. It is August 10th, 2026, and on July 8th of this year, the United States Department of Energy's National Nuclear Security Administration posted an announcement that received a fraction of the news coverage it deserved, given what it actually means for American deterrence and for the global strategic balance. The NNSA announced that it had completed diamond stamping of all planned canned subassemblies for the B-6113 nuclear gravity bomb, 3 months ahead of schedule. And that July announcement came more than a year after the program had already delivered its first complete bomb unit in May 2025, nearly a year before the original target date. So what we have is a nuclear weapon program that finished its first production unit nearly a year early, then continued accelerating, and then certified all of its key components for the current fiscal year 3 months ahead of schedule, while 6 other American nuclear warhead modernization programs are simultaneously running on time or ahead of schedule, every single one. 100% on-time or ahead-of-time delivery across the entire nuclear weapons production enterprise in this decade. That combination of speed, discipline, and simultaneous execution across multiple programs is something that has not been seen in the American nuclear weapons complex since the Cold War. And what the B-6113 is, what it does, why finishing it this early matters, and what it signals to every adversary the United States faces right now, that is the full story we are going to break down today. Here's what we are covering. We are going to walk through the complete B-6113 story from the moment the Pentagon announced the program in October 2023 to the diamond stamping announcement in July 2026. And we are going to explain exactly what each of those milestones actually means in plain language. We are going to talk about the physics of this weapon, the 360 kiloton yield, what that means compared to Hiroshima, what it means compared to the weapons it is replacing, and why the phrase harder and large area military targets in the official description is deliberately specific and geopolitically significant. We are going to get into the delivery platforms, the B-2 Spirit right now and the B-21 Raider in the not-too-distant future, and why the exclusive pairing of this bomb with strategic bomber aircraft, rather than fighter jets, tells you exactly what this weapon is designed to do and who it is designed to deter. We are going to cover the full nuclear modernization picture across all 6 concurrent programs because the B-6113 is not a standalone project. It is one piece of the most comprehensive nuclear force modernization effort in American history, and understanding the whole picture changes how you see each individual piece. And then we are going to do the strategic analysis that explains why all of this is happening right now, in this specific window of history, against this specific threat environment, and what it means for American deterrence going forward. Let us get into it. Start with a timeline of how the B-6113 went from announcement to finished bomb in under 2 years, because that timeline is genuinely remarkable and needs context to be fully appreciated. In October 2023, the Pentagon announced the B-6113 program, describing it at the time as providing the president with additional options against certain harder and large area military targets. At the announcement, the Pentagon was explicit that the B-6113 would not add to the total number of nuclear weapons in the American stockpile. It would replace existing weapons, specifically the aging B-617 variant, and eventually some of the capacity being retired with the B-83 bomb. The B-617 warhead is the nuclear explosive package that the B-6113 inherits and upgrades with modern safety, security, and accuracy features. What the B-6113 does with that warhead is pair the Cold War-era high-yield explosive capability with decades of modern guidance, safety system, and manufacturing advancement that simply did not exist when the B-617 was designed. The program was announced in October 2023. Sandia National Laboratories revealed the first joint test assembly in March 2025. The first complete production unit was assembled at the Pantex plant in Amarillo, Texas in May 2025, nearly a year before the original target date. The NNSA and the U.S. Air Force called it one of the most rapidly developed and fielded weapons since the Cold War. And that already accelerated timeline has continued accelerating, with the July 2026 diamond stamping announcement establishing that all canned subassemblies for the current fiscal year have been certified 3 months ahead of schedule at the Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, under 2 years, from announcement to War Reserve quality certified production components. That is a pace the American nuclear weapons complex has not operated at in decades. The term diamond stamping requires an explanation because it is not commonly understood outside the nuclear weapons enterprise, and what it represents is significant. Diamond stamping is the final, rigorous certification process that a nuclear weapon component has met all requirements of NNSA's certification standards and is approved for deployment to the U.S. nuclear stockpile as War Reserve quality. When NNSA says a weapon has been diamond stamped, it is saying that the component has passed every quality, safety, and performance test required to be treated as an actual deployable nuclear weapon rather than a prototype or test assembly. The specific components being diamond stamped in the July 2026 announcement are the canned subassemblies, which are the secondary stage of a modern two-stage thermonuclear weapon. Modern nuclear bombs like the B-6113 work in two stages. The primary stage, often called the pit, uses conventional explosives to compress a fissile core, generating the X-ray and neutron flux that then ignites the secondary stage. The secondary stage, the canned subassembly, contains the fusion fuel and the components that generate the overwhelming majority of the weapon's total yield. Diamond stamping the canned subassemblies means the most complex and most powerful part of the nuclear explosive package has been certified as war reserve quality across all planned units for the fiscal year. These are not test articles sitting in a laboratory. They are finished components approved for operational deployment, assembled into complete gravity bombs at Pantex, and deliverable by the bomber aircraft that carry them. 3 months ahead of schedule. Now let us talk about what this bomb actually does, because the yield number needs context to be understood in its proper weight. The B-6113 carries a maximum yield of approximately 360 kilotons. The atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, Little Boy, had a yield of 15 kilotons. The B-6113 at maximum yield is 24 times more powerful than the weapon that destroyed a city of 350,000 people and killed between 70,000 and 80,000 people on the day it detonated. That comparison is not made to be dramatic. It is made because scale matters when you are talking about deterrence, and the people the B-6113 is intended to deter understand scale very well. The weapon it most directly replaces in capability terms is the B-6117, which has a maximum yield of approximately 340 to 360 kilotons. Essentially the same destructive power now packaged with modern precision guidance, modern safety features that prevent unauthorized detonation, and modern security features that prevent compromise. The weapon it supplements and eventually replaces in production terms is the B-83-1, which is the most powerful bomb in the current American arsenal at 2 megatons. Roughly 80 times the force of Hiroshima. The B-83-1 is being retired partly because its enormous yield is considered disproportionate for most deterrence missions, and partly because maintaining it in reliable condition is increasingly expensive. The B-6113 fills the gap between the B-6112's tactical 50 kiloton maximum and the B-83-1's city-destroying 2 megaton by providing a strategic 360 kiloton option that is sized and guided to hold at risk exactly the target set the official language describes: harder and large area military targets, underground command bunkers, hardened missile silos, large military installations that cannot be reliably destroyed with smaller weapons. The B-6113 is designed to reach those targets through its bomber delivery profile and to destroy them with enough energy that even deep hardening provides no reliable protection. There is one more dimension of the yield and target pairing that deserves careful attention before moving to the delivery platforms, because the phrase harder and large area military targets in the official NNSA description is doing a lot of specific technical and strategic work. The hardened target piece refers primarily to deeply buried bunkers, hardened missile silo complexes, and fortified command and control facilities of the kind that Russia, China, and North Korea have been building for decades specifically to survive nuclear attack. The large area target piece refers to something different: military installations, troop concentrations, naval bases, and industrial military complexes that cover too much geographic area to be efficiently destroyed by the smaller yields that tactical nuclear weapons provide. A 50 kiloton bomb like the B-6112 at maximum yield is extraordinarily powerful by any conventional measure, but it has a lethal radius that is considerably smaller than the footprint of a major military installation or an underground complex spread across multiple kilometers of tunnel network. The B-6113 at 360 kilotons produces a significantly larger lethal radius, roughly 2 to 3 times the radius of the B-6112 at maximum, which means it can achieve reliable destruction of larger target complexes with a single weapon where the B-6112 might require multiple. That efficiency matters in a deterrence context because it reduces the number of weapons needed to credibly threaten a given target set, which keeps the stockpile size manageable while maintaining full target coverage. It is the engineering answer to a strategic planning problem. As adversaries build bigger and more spread out military installations, the weapon designed to destroy them needs to scale accordingly, and the B-6113 is that scale-up applied to the proven B-61 platform rather than starting from scratch. The delivery platform story is critically important and is one of the features of the B-6113 program that most clearly signals its strategic purpose. Unlike the B-6112, which can be delivered by a wide range of aircraft, including the F-16, the F-15E Strike Eagle, and eventually the F-35A in its nuclear-certified configuration. The B-6113 is certified for delivery exclusively by strategic bomber aircraft and is deployed exclusively from bases in the continental United States. Right now, that means the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. In the near future, it will also mean the B-21 Raider. That exclusive pairing with strategic bombers is not an accident or a limitation. It is a deliberate design choice that tells you exactly what the B-6113 is for. Fighter aircraft delivering tactical nuclear weapons are tools of battlefield nuclear deterrence, the kind of extended deterrence commitment that has kept NATO allies covered for decades, and that requires forward-deployed nuclear weapons at bases in Europe. The B-61 TOW-12 handles that mission. The B-61 TOW-13 is something different. It is a strategic weapon carried by aircraft that fly from the continental United States, that have global range through aerial refueling, and that are specifically designed to penetrate the most advanced integrated air defense systems in the world. The B-2 Spirit, with its flying wing stealth design and its radar-absorbent materials, achieves a radar cross-section smaller than a large bird. The B-21 Raider, which is the next-generation stealth bomber currently in development and approaching operational status, has been designed with the lessons of 30 years of stealth technology advancement to penetrate even the most advanced Chinese and Russian air defense networks. Pairing the B-6113 exclusively with these platforms tells you that the targets this weapon is designed to hold at risk are defended by the best air defense systems on Earth. That means China. That means Russia. That means the kind of deeply hardened military infrastructure that only nuclear weapons at this yield level can reliably threaten. The B-21 Raider and B-6113 relationship deserves its own focused attention because, together, they represent the most significant evolution in American strategic bomber nuclear capability since the B-2 entered service in 1997. The B-21 is being built by Northrop Grumman and is specifically designed to operate in environments where the B-2 would face challenges from the most advanced Chinese radar systems, which have improved dramatically in the 2 decades since the B-2 was designed. The B-21 incorporates open systems architecture that allows software upgrades to keep it current with evolving threats without requiring hardware redesign. It is expected to eventually carry the long-range standoff weapon, the LRSO, which is an air-launched cruise missile with the W-84 nuclear warhead that allows a bomber to strike deeply defended targets from standoff range without entering the most dangerous threat envelopes. And it will carry the B-6113 for close-in delivery where the penetrating bomb is the right answer. The combination of a stealth bomber that can penetrate advanced air defenses and a high-yield precision gravity bomb designed for harder targets is exactly what American nuclear planners need to maintain credible deterrence against the kind of hardened military targets that China and Russia have been building for decades, specifically to survive nuclear attack. Now, let us talk about the 6 concurrent nuclear modernization programs that are all running on time or ahead of schedule simultaneously, because the B-6113 is one piece of a larger picture that deserves the full view. Alongside the B-6113, NNSA is currently executing the W-87-1 modification program, which is producing the new warhead for the Sentinel ICBM that is replacing the Minuteman III. The Minuteman III has been in service since 1970. The Sentinel is a next-generation intercontinental ballistic missile that will eventually carry the W-87-1 warhead through a development and production partnership between the Air Force and the nuclear weapons enterprise. The W-93 program is developing a new submarine-launched ballistic missile warhead to eventually arm the Columbia-class nuclear submarines that are replacing the Ohio-class. The Columbia-class boats are the largest submarines ever built by the United States and are specifically designed to be the survivable leg of the nuclear triad. The ballistic missile submarines that operate so quietly and at such depth that no adversary can reliably track and target them, ensuring that even a catastrophic first strike on American territory could not eliminate the retaliatory capability carried by those submarines. The W-80 ORS-4 warhead is being developed for the long-range standoff cruise missile. And NNSA is managing additional life extension programs for existing warheads to maintain stockpile reliability while the new systems come online. All 6, on time or ahead, every single one. The agency has maintained a 100% on-time or ahead-of-time delivery record to the Department of War across this decade. In an era when most large defense acquisition programs are measured in decades of delay and billions in cost overruns, that record is essentially unprecedented. The production infrastructure supporting all of this deserves specific acknowledgement because it represents a genuine national security investment that goes beyond the weapons themselves. The Pantex plant in Amarillo, Texas, is the primary final assembly facility for American nuclear weapons, and has been the beating heart of the weapons production complex since World War II. The Y-12 National Security Complex in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, is where highly enriched uranium components are manufactured, processed, and stored. The Kansas City National Security Campus produces non-nuclear components, the electronic systems, mechanical parts, and conventional explosive systems that make modern nuclear weapons precise, safe, and reliable. Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Livermore, California, provides the systems engineering, arming and firing systems, and the comprehensive design verification work. Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico is where the primary physics packages, the plutonium pits, are designed and will increasingly be manufactured as the U.S. restores its ability to produce new plutonium pits for the first time since Rocky Flats closed in 1989. That pit production capability is one of the most significant long-term investments in nuclear modernization, because without the ability to manufacture new plutonium pits, the ability to produce new nuclear weapons is ultimately constrained by the aging stockpile of existing pits. The combination of pit production restoration at Los Alamos and Savannah River, the warm production lines maintained at Pantex and Y-12, and the workforce expertise built through the B-6112 program and now flowing directly into the B-6113 and the other concurrent modernization programs represents an institutional nuclear manufacturing capacity that the United States has not had since the Cold War ended. Building that capacity back up has taken decades and cost billions. Maintaining it through continuous production programs, rather than letting it atrophy between projects, is exactly the lesson the B-6113's accelerated schedule embodies. The strategic context that explains why all of this is being accelerated simultaneously is the most important part of the picture, and it connects the B-6113 to every other element of the American national security posture right now. China has been expanding its nuclear arsenal at a pace that has consistently surprised American intelligence assessments. Satellite imagery analyzed by the Federation of American Scientists and other open-source monitoring organizations has confirmed the construction of more than 300 new ICBM silos in western China since 2021, in addition to expansions at existing facilities. The Pentagon's annual China Military Power Report has repeatedly noted the acceleration of Chinese nuclear forces development, with projections suggesting China could have more than 1,000 deliverable nuclear warheads by 2030, a nearly fourfold increase from its estimated stockpile at the beginning of this decade. China has also been developing new delivery systems, including the DF-41 ICBM, with a range covering the entire continental United States, multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles on its submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and a growing nuclear-capable bomber force. The B-6113's exclusive certification for strategic bombers and its yield specifically oriented to destroy harder and large-area military targets makes sense in exactly this context. Those 300-plus new ICBM silos are exactly the kind of target that requires a high-yield precision weapon delivered by a penetrating stealth bomber to hold credibly at risk. Russia's nuclear posture has also been evolving in ways that the B-6113 addresses directly. Russia's military doctrine has increasingly emphasized what analysts call escalate to de-escalate, the idea of using a limited nuclear strike to force an adversary to back down from a conventional conflict rather than face the prospect of full nuclear exchange. To deter that doctrine credibly, the United States needs nuclear options that are flexible, that are proportionate, and that can threaten the specific military targets that Russian doctrine designates as leverage points in a limited nuclear exchange. The B-6113's variable yield capability, like all B-61 variants, it can be configured to deliver less than its maximum yield. And its precision guidance give American planners exactly the kind of flexibility the 2022 Nuclear Posture Review identified as necessary for credible deterrence against limited nuclear use scenarios. The B-2 delivering a B-6113 against a specific Russian military target is not the same as a Minuteman III launch that triggers Russia's full launch on warning protocol. It is a proportionate, targeted, precisely delivered option that creates room for deliberate escalation management rather than forcing immediate, all-out exchange. That flexibility is part of why Deputy NNSA Administrator Marvin Adams specifically said the B-6113's completion provides additional flexibility to the President's nuclear response options. There's also something important to say about the B-2 spirit and what its role in the current Iran conflict means for how the B-6113 program lands strategically at this specific moment. The B-2 has been one of the primary delivery platforms for the most demanding conventional strikes in the Iran campaign. The platform that flew the first operational GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator missions against Fordo and Natanz during Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025. 7 B-2s flew from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, delivered 14 GBU-57 bombs, destroyed deeply buried nuclear facilities that no other conventional weapon could reach, and returned home. The world has now seen in operational conditions what the B-2 can do as a platform capable of reaching the most heavily defended targets on Earth and delivering the most destructive conventional weapons in the American arsenal with precision. That is the same aircraft that now carries the B-61.13. The adversaries watching the Iran campaign are watching the B-2's performance not just as a conventional strike asset, but as the platform through which nuclear threats would ultimately be delivered if deterrence ever failed. Every mission the B-2 flew over Iranian airspace in 2025 and 2026 was simultaneously a demonstration of the B-2's operational credibility as the primary delivery vehicle for America's most powerful strategic nuclear gravity bomb. The B-6113 and the B-2 Spirit have a relationship that goes beyond a simple aircraft weapon pairing. Together, they represent the credible threat end of a deterrence equation that every rational adversary must account for. North Korea sits at the other end of the threat spectrum from China and Russia. Smaller arsenal, more primitive delivery systems, but real, growing, and increasingly capable. North Korea has demonstrated ICBM capability through multiple tests and has been working to develop a credible second strike survivability through mobile launchers, tunnel networks, and hardened underground facilities. The North Korean calculus that nuclear capability provides permanent immunity from regime change is the same logic Iran was trying to apply with Pickaxe Mountain, and the B-6113's specific orientation toward destroying harder military targets speaks directly to what it would mean to have to hold North Korean hardened military infrastructure at credible risk if deterrence failed. That scenario is not the central design point of the program, but it is part of the broader deterrence architecture that the weapon contributes to. The production acceleration story deserves one more layer of analysis, because it represents a genuine organizational achievement in a weapons enterprise that has historically been plagued by delays and cost overruns. The B-6112 life extension program, originally estimated at $4 billion, ran to approximately $8 billion before completion. Nuclear weapons programs across multiple administrations have been measured in decades of overruns and constant rebaselining. The B-6113 completed its first unit in under 2 years and has been running its current fiscal year deliverables 3 months ahead of schedule. NNSA Administrator Brandon Williams attributed this to the nuclear security enterprise's ability to respond to evolving geopolitical requirements with speed and precision. What that means operationally is that the institutional knowledge, the production tooling, and the workforce expertise built up during the B-6112 program were immediately available and directly applicable to the B-6113, because the two programs share common production capabilities. The B-6112 finished its last production unit in January 2025. The B-6113 started production at essentially the same facilities, on the same equipment, with the same workforce 5 months later. Momentum from one program carried directly into the next. That is not an accident of engineering. It is a deliberate strategy of maintaining warm production lines and skilled workforce continuity across sequential programs, so that the gap between programs is measured in months rather than years. And it is producing results in execution speed that the Cold War nuclear enterprise at its peak would have recognized. The geopolitical messaging dimension of all of this is something that American officials have been explicit about and that deserves full acknowledgement. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, standing at the Pantex plant when the first B-6113 unit was completed, said, "The remarkable speed of the B-6113's production is a testament to the ingenuity of our scientists and engineers and the urgency we face to fortify deterrence in a volatile new age." NNSA Administrator Williams said completing the 2026 deliverables ahead of schedule sends a message to our adversaries that our national defense remains agile, secure, and effective. Deputy Administrator Adams was even more direct, saying the program's success demonstrates our ability to execute, not only to our partners and stakeholders in DoD and Congress, but also to our adversaries and allies. These are not throwaway quotes. When American nuclear officials publicly use the phrase "our adversaries" in statements about a completed nuclear weapon delivery, they are sending a deliberate, calculated message through open channels to Beijing, Moscow, Pyongyang, and Tehran. The message is this: the American nuclear weapons enterprise is functioning at a speed and level of discipline that your own assessments may not have anticipated. All 6 programs are ahead of schedule simultaneously, the delivery platforms are being modernized in parallel, and the weapons will be available when they are needed in the numbers required by the Nuclear Force Structure Plan. That is deterrence communication in the most direct and verifiable form. Not a threat, not a bluster, just a demonstrated fact about capability that every adversary's strategic planners have to incorporate into their own calculus. There is one more strategic dimension that deserves full treatment before connecting the B-6113 to the Iran conflict, which is the ally assurance function that the program serves alongside its deterrence purpose. American extended deterrence commitments, the promise to defend allies with nuclear weapons if necessary, have been the foundation of American alliance relationships since the Cold War. Japan, South Korea, Australia, and NATO allies in Europe all operate under American extended deterrence guarantees. The credibility of those guarantees depends partly on the capability and partly on the demonstrated will to maintain and modernize that capability. When South Korea looks at a North Korea with growing nuclear capabilities and an expanding ICBM program, what it needs to see is not just American conventional forces in the region, but evidence that the American nuclear weapons enterprise is functioning and modernizing. When Japan looks at a Chinese nuclear buildup that includes 300-plus new ICBM silos and advanced submarine-launched ballistic missile development, it needs the same assurance. NATO allies, who have hosted forward-deployed B-61 nuclear bombs for decades as the physical manifestation of American extended deterrence commitment, need evidence that those weapons are being replaced and modernized as older variants age out. The B-61-12 completes that need for the tactical nuclear mission in Europe. The B-61 Type 13 completes it for the strategic mission that backs up the broader deterrence guarantee. Deputy Administrator Adams specifically referenced the demonstration of execution capability to partners and stakeholders alongside adversaries. The ally assurance message is as deliberate as the adversary deterrence message. Both audiences received it simultaneously when NNSA announced the ahead-of-schedule completion. Let us talk about what the B-6113 means specifically in the context of the Iran conflict and Pickaxe Mountain, because the two stories connect in a way that has not been fully drawn out in most of the coverage. Pickaxe Mountain is a granite facility buried 100 to 135 meters below the surface. The GBU-57 conventional bunker buster bomb may not be able to reliably penetrate that depth through that geology. The B-6113 is a thermonuclear weapon specifically designed to defeat harder and large area military targets. It is not the intended tool for Pickaxe Mountain, and its use is not being considered in that context. The American position has always been that the Pickaxe Mountain problem will be solved with conventional weapons, if it can be, and nuclear weapons carry consequences in their use that no conventional target justifies. But the B-6113's existence and deployment does change the broader deterrence environment within which the Iran conflict is occurring. American adversaries watching the Iran conflict who are thinking about whether their own hardened underground programs might provide similar strategic immunity need to account for the full spectrum of American capability, including a newly completed, production-accelerated, 360 kiloton precision nuclear gravity bomb delivered by stealth bombers. When they make those calculations, the B-6113 does not threaten Pickaxe Mountain directly. It threatens any facility on Earth that its adversary might build, no matter how deep or how hard, that America's conventional options cannot reliably destroy. Here is the 40 chess strategic analysis. The United States has been operating in a security environment for the past decade that features three nuclear-armed adversaries: China, Russia, and North Korea, all simultaneously improving their nuclear capabilities, all building more survivable delivery systems, and all adopting strategic postures that treat nuclear weapons as more usable instruments of coercion than Cold War deterrence doctrine assumed they would be. Against that threat environment, the 2022 Nuclear Posture Review called for a nuclear force that was flexible, that could hold a wide range of target types at credible risk across a spectrum of conflict scenarios, and that could assure allies of extended deterrence commitments that have been the foundation of American alliance relationships since the Cold War. The B-6113 completed nearly a year early, with all fiscal year components certified 3 months ahead of schedule by an enterprise that is running every one of its 6 programs on time or better, is the American nuclear weapons complex, demonstrating that it can respond to the urgency of that strategic environment with execution that matches the stated commitment. That combination of political will, institutional capability, and production speed is exactly what deterrence requires in a multipolar nuclear world where no single adversary model captures the full range of the threat. The bomb is finished early, the message is delivered. The question now is whether the adversaries receiving that message adjust their own calculations accordingly. So what do you think? Does the B-6113's accelerated completion, combined with all 6 modernization programs running ahead of schedule simultaneously, represent the kind of deterrent signal that changes adversary behavior? And with the B-21 Raider coming into service as the primary delivery platform, how much does combining next-generation stealth with this new high-yield precision weapon change the calculus for adversaries who have been building hardened facilities specifically to survive conventional strikes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation connects nuclear modernization to every other strategic question this channel covers, and I want to hear every perspective. Share this with someone who needs the full picture on what America's nuclear modernization program is actually accomplishing. Hit subscribe so you do not miss a single update as these developments continue to unfold. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We will see you in the next one.